Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting this evening. Just want you to know that we have actually started recording this evening. And for those present tonight, I'd like to advise you that this is a public meeting and will be recorded and published on our council's website about 48 hours after the conclusion of the meeting, and it will stay on our council website for 24 months. Audio and vision of any persons who are making a deputation and visions of persons present in the gallery will be captured in the recording. I'd also like to remind us all in the gallery not to be taking filming proceedings, but we can use the footage that we get and all see together in the future. I'd like to ask members before we start our meeting to formally stand and read the pledge. And members in the gallery, if you'd like to stand too as we read this, you'd be very welcome and encourage you to do that. We recognise this city's considerable natural and cultural heritage, including thousands of years of traditional ownership by Ghana and the more recent contribution from people either born here who have migrated here. As we meet together, we promote heritage by respecting and listening to each other, thinking clearly, being receptive to new ideas, speaking honestly, and deciding wisely for the current and future well-being of those we serve. Thanks, everyone. And just want to acknowledge that it is Harmony Day as well today, so we really pay attention to all the cultural diversity in our city and the people we serve. Welcome to those of you who are in the gallery tonight. We are always pleased to see the public join us as we deliberate on our local issues and on our agenda. And to ensure we're able to conduct our business in an open and transparent way, I'd just like to remind members in the gallery tonight that you're here to observe the proceedings and you aren't able to participate in the meeting. And I ask that noise is kept to a minimum so that we can all hear the proceedings. That said, if anyone is behaving in a disorderly way, I will pay attention and receive help from the South Australian legislation that sets out that any intentional obstruction or hindering of a meeting is an offence and can carry a maximum penalty of $1,250. And we have a zero tolerance to that behaviour in this chamber. Welcome to the deputation that we will have tonight as well, and reminder that those deputations are always for 8 minutes, and when the time comes, we'll provide some support around that. So we will now just confirm the minutes of our last meeting, and I'm wondering if who would be willing to move those minutes. And Councillor THEMELIOTIS. Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Wilkes. Thank you very much. Any questions or all approved? Thank you. We have no adjourned business and there is no, basic thing. We need to vote on those minutes. All in favour, please raise your hands. Carried. The level of, completion is so important, and I do apologise for that. I just know how excellent the minutes are, and we really appreciate the support of the staff in keeping everything on track. The next item of business are the apologies, and we have none, and there is also no leave of absence. Item 5.1, for those of you who are following along, is the Mayor's report, and I'm presenting that tonight for you, and the recommendation is that you note the report. Do we have someone to move that motion? Councillor Stafford, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Can you press your buttons, please? It looks like we've all had a little rest in Councillor Platten. Yes. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Can we vote on the item? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Carried. And I just want to draw your attention to the correspondence that's attaching that report. There are a number of items that are pieces of correspondence that are important to us here in our city of Onkaparinga to ministers. in the state government. We don't have any presentations this evening, but we do have a deputation. And I'm wondering if Eric PELVAY, is that the correct pronunciation? If you'd like to come forward, we would be very pleased to receive you into the chamber. You can speak from one of the microphones there or from here from the lectern.
I can go there or here.
Yeah, that's correct. So many options. You'll need to press the button. There's a little red down the middle. If one of the staff can assist. Thank you, David. Wonderful. So just to remind you, Mr. PELVAY, that the deputation is for 8 minutes. You will be able to see the clock up here and we'll give you a little warning towards the last minute. So welcome.
Good evening, Mayor.
Can you press your little button down the bottom again?
All good.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Eric PELVAY and my wife and I own the Coromandel Valley Shopping Centre. I would like to start off by saying it is my intention to remove the Coromandel Valley Shopping Centre car park should the council remove the flooded river gum, which is a significant tree the council will be voting on tonight. I started this process off approximately 18 months ago with council, also getting quotes from trades to reinstate the car park, which were within my budget. Why remove the flooded river gum, which is a native species of New South Wales? This tree should have been planted on the banks of a river or a creek or in the wide open spaces, not in a council verge within 1 metre of private property. I'm green-minded. I have a 100-acre farm in the Adelaide Hills with many regulated and significant trees, particularly red river gums. Some are over 200 years old, which we care for. We do tree plantings. We create wildlife corridors. And it saddens me to suggest cutting down such a large established tree. However, due to the poor plant selection and poor decisions regarding the location of this planting is making some of these trees, this tree in particular, due to their size and root systems, prone to damage the capital infrastructure and cause health and safety trip issues for the community. There are 3 regulated trees on the council verge or adjacent, all planted, we believe, by the council some 30 or 50 years ago. They are all similar height and crown shape. 2 spotted gums by the bakery, Coromandel Valley Bakery, planted 4 metres apart, show no visible signs, no visible damage to the shopping centre infrastructure. However, the flooded river gum, a different species with a very large, shallow, invasive root system, which should have never been planted so close to private infrastructure, has shown to be causing significant damage to the shopping centre's infrastructure, the car park. This planting was made within 1 metre of our boundary. No thoughts were given to the impact of our property in years to come. The roots have pushed our bitumen and curbing up 150 millimetres, as can be seen, and it can be seen, the roots can be seen lifting the bitumen 7 metres into our car park. The bitumen surface is not flexible. The upward pressure from the roots from below, so you've got the upward pressure is the actual bitumen on top, causing cracking up at the top, which allows the water to penetrate into the bitumen rubble base below, which then gets soft and cannot support the weight of the cars going over it, and further flexes and cracks, forming depressions, allowing the rain to sit in them. So you've got the upward movement by the roots, water going in, going down to the base, sitting in the base is getting soft, the bitumen then flexes like so, water sits in there, there's cracks in the bitumen, goes down in the subbase and spreads. offering no support for the bitumen anymore. Spreading the moisture under the bitumen again, further weakening the base. This process continues to spread throughout the car park, expanding the failing bitumen. We get the bitumen repair contractors in twice a year, but to no avail. For as soon as the bitumen is repaired, it opens up in another location. I get complaints. Our tenants get complaints. Our local councillors here in this chamber tonight get complaints from the Coromandel Valley community asking for something to be done about the shopping centre car park. We are prepared to do something about it, to reinstate it. But we require this tree to be removed. At the moment, the uplifting bitumen to 150 millimetres in height and the sinkholes due to the bitumen base failure are all trip hazards for the elderly and the young alike. And are certainly a public liability issue. For no other reason than health and safety of the Coromandel Valley community, this regulated tree should be removed. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. PELVAY. Would you be willing to take any questions from elected members?
Would I accept questions from elected members? Yes, please.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Councillor Eaton.
Thank you for your presentation. Just the chamber an idea of the types of businesses that are in the shopping centre.
Type of businesses?
We have a GP, a doctor. We have a chemist. We have all this by all these people. We've got a physiotherapist, once again, this is by all these people. We've got a beauty salon. We've got a new restaurant. We've got a Chinese.
Yes,
we've got a bakery, which is
it's not flashing green.
No,
it's not.
Well, this is by elderly people, young people, but you know, yeah.
And,
Councillor Eaton, would you mind just pressing your button again? We're having a tiny little technical problem up here. We just want to check it. So can I do that?
yeah, have you received any complaints at all from particularly the medical practitioner?
Absolutely. And finally, there's been quite an angry state. Basically saying that one is patients. Because the elderly lady, the mother of the elderly lady rang him up saying, I'm not taking my mother to your fee anymore because of the state of the car park. He rang me up and told me that. And that would have been about 4 months ago.
Right, thank you, Tab.
Thank you, Councillor Eden. Any further questions? Councillor Wilkes and Mr. PELVAY, would you mind pressing that middle button again of yours? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. PELVAY, for your deputation. I just have a couple of questions. You said you are getting complaints about the car park. I was wondering if that's the damage that's caused by the tree, or is that the car park in general? Is it all around the car park, or is it just right next to the tree?
The damage done within a 7 to 8, 9 metre radius of the tree trunk is where the significant damage is. And as I explained in my deputation, the water goes in, it sits like it gets, the roots push it up, push up the bitumen, water goes in through the cracks, it goes down into the base, makes the cars go over it, the base can't support the cars anymore, it gets hollowed out, and then you get the water goes through the cracks in the base and it just spreads. The water spreads underneath the bitumen. And I mean, the water just runs. I mean, it just runs all over the place. And then you get the cars going over it, you get further dips, and then those further dips create the same problem again. And it's a cancer. It's a cancer that's going through the shopping centre. Okay. And it's all started by cracks in the bitumen. And then the cracks largely, I'm not saying every single crack, but the vast majority of those cracks are caused by tree root movement. And this particular tree has got an extremely shallow, aggressive movement, movement, and you can see it. I mean, like I can follow the actual snaking of the roots 7 meters into the car park, let alone like just underneath. It's raising the bitumen 7 meters into the car park.
Okay, so it's not, okay, thank you. Have you ever seen any wildlife in the tree?
The bakery caught a koala trying to get in stores. I mean, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, and then if the tree stays, or if it's like, do you have another kind of plan for the car park?
I want to renew the car park. I basically want to rip up all the existing bitumen, rip up the existing curbing, but like take out the actual basin and the roots that are smashed the base up, and then relay it, redo it. So basically, we won't have an issue we'll have a sealed car park. So water won't be able to penetrate, and we'll go to the stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Pelvay, for the deputation. My question is about whether you've considered moving a car park away from the tree so that it becomes a feature of the car park, and also just wondering whether you considered another surface, something like a rubber.
Okay, if we look at a rubber surface, a rubber is flexible, okay, but you've got a tree that's actually lifted. We actually can't shave that tree off, the roots of that tree off. As soon as you do that, it will lose its stability and it will fall. We had a house in Summerlin Park. The council did the curbing. They just chopped a little bit off the root system. 3 weeks later, the tree fell in our front yard, and that would be the same thing that would happen with this tree if we started trimming the roots off. We're looking at 150 mil heave of the roots, and like it sort of goes down. Like you're going to have trip hazards in the carpet, whether you put rubber on, whether you put bitumen straight on top. Basically those tree roots need to be removed. And so that was part 2 of your question. What was part 1? Sorry.
Whether you would, for example, leave the roots where they are and may essentially no longer have a car park immediately around that tree and have it as a feature of the car park.
Okay. It's like the car park is very busy as it is, particularly with the bakery. A lot of people going in and out. Sometimes it can be quite competitive to actually get like a car park. The root system that we're talking about is not a little 3 metre by 3 metre area. It expands 7 metres into the car park. The car park themselves, because they're at an angle, there must probably depth-wise, 5 metres in length. So you're getting 2 metres out into the actual roadway, or the actual laneway for getting in and out. And we're not, and 7 metres. We're talking about this tree is I think it's a massive tree. And if you do a circumference around where the roots would go, I mean, you'd be losing nearly all of that side, that car park down off the side. And it's not a practical solution in respect to for a shopping centre with what, 8-9 shops or something with a condensed car parking area.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
There's no more questions I can see. So thank you, Mr. Pelvay, for your deputation this evening. This item will be coming up shortly. If you'd like to stay and listen to the debate, you'd be very welcome.
What, 5-10 minutes or so?
Well, that really will depend on the level and quality of the debate that we might get in other items, but you're very welcome to stay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking.
Thanks. Thank you. So now we move to the part of the agenda just for a gallery and to remind us all where we're doing reports from committees and from the committee chairpersons. And the first one this evening is from the CEO Performance Management Committee meeting minutes. And we are noting that the public minutes of the meeting are attached to the report, and we are, is someone willing, who's on that committee, willing to move that agenda item? We have Councillor Ju, and we have Councillor. Do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you.
No, thank you. And Councillor Platten, you're seconding it.
Thank you.
Any questions? can we vote on this item then for the minutes? Thank you, everyone. If you're sitting in your chair, you do need to vote one way or the other. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, the next item is 8.2. And that is the minutes of this same meeting from the 23rd of February. Is that right? No, sorry. What's the date on the second one? Oh, it is the 23rd of February. So do we have a mover for this item? Councillor Platten. I see there's a pattern emerging here. And Councillor Dewey is seconding it.
Yeah, thank you.
And all those in favour? Thank you, everyone. Carried. Now, the next part of our agenda are the reports of officers. And so we're up to 9.3, if anyone is following along. Sorry, 9.1. And 9.1 is the Hopgood Theatre Community Engagement Outcome, and I believe there is an update. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through the Mayor, I just wanted to highlight that informal questions were received from Councillor Wilkes with the response found in your yellow folders. I also just wanted to provide some clarity on the Country Arts SA proposal and the refurbishment timelines, as the recommendation 3 highlights there on screen. It's proposed that we enter into an agreement for the 12 months from the 1st of July to the 30th of June 2024. It is envisioned that Country Arts SA will manage theatre operations until the refurbishment, which is planned to commence in April 2024. Country Arts will support the relocation of groups to other locations if required for the refurbishment period and manage future commercial hiring, ticketing, accounts and administration between April and June 2024 during the early stages of the refurbishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there someone here willing to move? Councillor Themilotis?
Yes.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just really briefly, because I'm going to take every opportunity to do this when HOPGOOD comes up. I'm just going to mention how important it is to find a home for the Onkaparinga Concert Band and the Onkaparinga Pipe Band. HOPGOOD Theatre would be perfect. So I hope elected members, every time this comes up, you think of these two groups.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bell. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No.
Is there any further discussion or any questions? Councillor Wilkes, do you have a question? Or do you wish to debate? You're okay. We know that. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone debate? I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. And thank you to the staff for the work you've done to get us to that point today. We appreciate it. Item number 2, 9.2, regulated and significant tree removal. And I understand there's also an update for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, we received 2 questions from Councillor Bell relating to the report. One about providing the ages of the trees that were subject to the report, which we provided through and is in your folders tonight. The other one related to the subject trees and the numbers of trees that we remove or get requests from, and really where those requests come from, which again is provided through the email and in your folders this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, were you planning to speak? Sorry, I just, the microphone was, did you want to move the item?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, I do. Look, I think the report outlines the reasons as to why these trees need to be removed. And certainly the Coromandel Shopping Centre one, I do visit that area quite regularly. And I do notice people having difficulties walking in there. And we have a responsibility to ensure that our community is safe. And leading on to the other trees, and we've got trees that are identified as being a risk. I ask everybody, just have a look what happened Sunday night, Monday morning with the damage that trees caused. Reflect back, and the people that were killed, the person that was killed in Hazelwood Park a while back from a limb falling from a tree. There is a need to make sure that our community is safe, and if we've got assessments done on these trees are identifying that they're a risk to the community, then clearly we have an obligation to represent the community and ensure that their safety is correct and remove them. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Eaton. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
And just debate really briefly. I think our community all are very supportive of us retaining our trees, and they're all very supportive of us doing that in a risk-averse manner. And there are many times where trees are being planted in an inappropriate location. And Coromandel Valley, so I'm going to call it tree number 8 because that's where it sits. Tree number 8 is one of those trees. And Councillor Ian and I have attended even Coromandel Community Centre on a number of occasions and had residents pull us aside and ask us to issue complaints to the Coromandel shops about this tree. So we're hearing a lot about this tree, and Councillor Ian and I have both had back and forth emails with our the person that gave a deputation today, Eric, and this has gone on far too long. And residents have asked for this car park to be fixed for far too long. And we have a shopping centre owner who actually wants to do something and address it. Because if we go look at Aberfoyle Park shops, we get residents complaining about that shops and it's tired and old and not being addressed. But we actually have a shopping centre owner that wants to address an issue and fix it for our community. And even said himself, you know, I like trees. I don't want to remove trees, but this was planted in an inappropriate location. Now, we've only got 8 trees here, and I just want to touch on a couple of trees. One from the previous council, which was one that Councillor Eaton and I attended, which was, I want to say, Aberfoyle Park area, significant tree that was basically bursting through the home of a property owner, inappropriately planted. That tree owner, the owner of the property, ended up planting 2 trees to compensate for the removal of that large tree, a significant cost. And then I look at another tree, a passionate one of Councillor Eaton's, which is one that's planted in a retirement village, inappropriate location. That one's not being addressed tonight. That one's going to be an ongoing issue. But elected members, there are times where we have to make some tough decisions, and the age of these trees is probably one of the most hurtful things about this. Because of the significance of those trees, but we've got to learn to plant trees in more appropriate locations. We've got to stop trying to do things that we think are benefiting the community by putting them close to things that we really shouldn't. We've got to look to the future. It's really hard to say that a tree that you plant now in 50 years' time is going to cause those issues, but we're going to have to do some future proofing and some future planning on those. And along with that, I think there's some other trees, one that I've just mentioned, that we probably need to take another look at as well. So I hope councillors with a heavy heart, but will actually support this for the reasons of risk.
Thank you very much, councillor. I see no other questions. I'm just checking if anyone's got any questions. Councillor Wilkes. Do you have a question or do you wish to debate?
I wish to move an amendment I would like to test with the chamber. So I have to, sorry, I've got my L plates on, but I have to
Stand up.
Sorry, I have to move the amendment and then
we test the amendment. That's right.
I can speak to it after that.
You can move the amendment, yes, and speak to the
So
amendment.
I would like to move that council approves the lodgement of the development application for the removal of the 7 significance trees throughout the city and does not approve the lodgement of the 401 Main Road, Coromandel Valley.
What number tree is that?
Number 8.
And just for members' information, that's the tree that we've had the deputation on this evening.
Yep.
Just so everyone's clear. So you're moving that motion, you wish that amendment, you wish to speak to that amendment?
Yes, I wish to speak to that amendment.
That's a direct.
Is that direct opposite?
A direct opposite, yes, would need to be a new. No, thank you. I'm getting that in quadraphonic over here. So what we need to do is we need to pass this motion or not pass it first. If you wish to speak against the motion, you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
And then if the motion gets lost, you're in a position to create a new motion.
Okay, well, I'll speak against it then. I can't support this. There is, in the your say, 11 out of 11 people who do not want to see this tree removed. The comments in here say it all. Well, I feel like they say a lot, they don't say it all, nothing says it all, but the comments from the locals are, I love this tree, I do not want to see it removed. The whole of the car park is a mess and removing this beautiful tree is not going to improve the lack of attention the rest of the car park sees, leave it be. I strongly oppose the removal of this regulated tree is another one. Another one is that the whole car park is insufficient, poorly designed and of poor quality for growth that the shopping centre has seen. This tree should not be removed for the sake of those shops. Someone else has said removal of this tree would be a shameful act. And then another one is, I love this tree and I do not want to see it removed. The whole of this car park is a mess and the removal of this beautiful tree is not going to improve the lack of attention to the rest of the car park. Leave it be. So with these your say comments, I look at them and I think there's local residents around who love this tree. It looks like this car park has been inattended and not looked after for a while. So it's not, in my view, from reading these comments, not just the tree. I think the car park needs attention and it could probably be done with the tree still there.
Thank you, councillor Wilkes. Councillor Fisher, do you wish to speak for the motion?
No, I'm speaking against the motion as well, Mayor. The collective resources, without taking a specific interest in any particular item or tree within this, the grouping of these significant trees within the same motion, I find unacceptable. It's contrary to the climate emergency that this chamber entered into only 2 meetings ago. And that talked about the canopy. We have acknowledged that we are well behind the 8 ball as far as the planting of extra trees, and whilst only a small part of the carbon footprint, I find it absurd that we are actually considering eradicating healthy trees in our environment that do support other things other than the fact of shade, the wildlife concern. You get rid of these trees, 50 years, it's once in a lifetime. I haven't got 50 years to wait for the next trees to be planted to replace the trees that are going to be done. I support the removal of dead trees. I support the removal of high risk or trees in high risk settings. I certainly don't support the wholesale scale of destruction of trees that are still living and being termed with, a useful life is over. I just don't get that. I understand that that's an arborist term and things like that. At the same time, I acknowledge the efforts of council, the staff, and the significant interest that they have undertaken and undergone in researching these trees. And I also acknowledge the fact that a lot of work goes into determining whether trees have a useful life or not. I don't support that. The example of the Queen's Jubilee, where we've got a group of trees that are growing in Western Australia. Suddenly we're talking about the difference between a Western Australian tree and a South Australian tree. It's still a native tree. The dead trees, fine, get rid of them. The trees are still healthy, keep them and plant the extra trees that we get with that grant money in and around that area or somewhere else.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Greaves. Are you asking a question or speaking?
Debating, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, hang on.
Thank you very much. Look, trees always bring a whole range of different views in the debate to the chamber. I guess from my perspective, council staff have actually gone to a significant amount of work around assessing each and every one of these trees. It's not just simply let's go for a drive and pick a bunch of trees that we want to get rid of. There are reasons why they've been brought through this process. It is difficult because people do love trees. I love my tree. I planted this gorgeous one in my front yard. Hopefully it's going to be there for another 50 years because I planted it appropriately. And there's some very correct statements that have been said around the chamber. Back in the 1950s or 60s, there were actual tree planting drives, let's say. Come and pick up your river red gum and plant it in your property. All very well intentioned. But unfortunately, 40 or 50 years later, this council and indeed the residents who took up those opportunities are left facing, I guess, the consequences of having an inappropriate, very, very large and sometimes very dangerous tree in their backyard or on their verge. And that's the legacy, I guess, that we are dealing with now. Trees do have a useful life, you know, they are not infinite. They are particularly ones that are planted in the inappropriate places, subject to other pressures from road verges, from car parks, from not having access to the right amount of water. All of these things actually have an impact on the health of some of these large trees. And I think that is really reflected in the reports that we see before us tonight. Yes, these are 8 trees. We have millions of trees across this city, many of them which are very healthy and very productive and contributing to our tree canopy, lowering our temperature of our city, doing what they're meant to do, and they're performing well. But, you know, the practicality is we have lots of other trees that are simply inappropriate, are dangerous, and can have, you know, very, very serious consequences. I've got friends who live in Flagstaff Hill. They have a significant river red gum in their backyard and quite close to their boundary fence, and have tried often to get approval to have it removed. Now, that significant storm event that occurred, was it last year? They are now living in rental accommodation and they literally have to knock down their entire house and start to rebuild because of an inappropriate tree in their backyard. Yes, it was healthy, but even healthy trees can fail, you know, and that's why we have pretty detailed reports which don't just talk about, you know, the size and the age of the tree. They actually go to the structure of the tree. All of those photos we have where they're actually showing areas of decline, they may look insignificant, but the reality is in a strong wind, they are very significant. And if left, particularly in a public space, they create a massive liability for us. So look, it is difficult. I hate taking trees out, but there are times and places where we do have to make some of those difficult decisions. And I feel that all of the trees that are presented in this very detailed report have been considered as being inappropriate and at risk and at the end of their useful life, unfortunately. So I'm happy to, well, I will be supporting this. Not necessarily happy to, but I will support this. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Wilkes, I see you can ask a question, you can't debate.
I just have a question.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know why tree 8 was assigned for removal.
Have we got someone who can help us with that? Thank you.
Through the chair, tree 8 was assigned for removal because it was causing substantial damage to a structure of value, that being the car park. Unfortunately, there was no mitigation or reasonable mitigation in the form of root barriers or root pruning. Those would have destabilised the tree, and we don't own the land to do mitigation inside the property.
Thanks very much. I've also got a question, and that's about the risk and insurance and things like that. What would happen if, you know, a tree fell down on a car in a car park with some kids in it or something like that? Who's responsible? What is our risk profile and things like that?
Through the chair, the Local Government Act actually provides some statutory immunity to council, some protection from liability. It depends on whether there has been an act of negligence by the council in the management of any infrastructure that causes damage to third-party property, and we have a civil liability cover that covers us through the Local Government Mutual Liability Scheme.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Just a question, thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering whether there'll be, assuming this is passed, this motion is passed, will there be further engagement with the community prior to each of these trees being cut down?
Through the chair, first process I went through obviously is the your say, which is provided within the report. There is a slight change to the development application process. There used to be consultation required up to 60 metres of where the tree is located. When we put in a development application, that has now changed, unfortunately. So through the process, it's only the notification that we provide through your say. There won't be any further consultation at this stage.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Eaton to close. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fisher, I missed you. Do you have a question?
How many trees on this particular list have resulted as a result of, how have they ended up on the list?
Through the chair. Initially, they have come to our attention through a customer request. In most cases, the customer directly adjacent to the tree has raised concerns. And then due process is followed insofar as the arboricultural reports and everything contained within the council report here to lead us to recommending their removal. But the initial request has come from the customer adjacent to the tree.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton to close.
Yeah, clearly the report outlines the reasons as to why all these trees should be removed. Particularly looking at the one on Main Road, people have got to understand that it's not a very large car park. And in fact, the side street, we've actually banned parking in. So people either have to park on the other side of Main Road, and Main Road's a very difficult road for people to cross because we don't have any pedestrian crossings or anything like that. And the shopping centre attracts a lot of people. So clearly, this approval will ensure that the owner of the property can prepare that car park to a point that our residents in our ward are not put at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion as written. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those against? 1, 2, 3. The motion is carried. Thank you. Yes, you may call a division. So all of those in favour, please stand. We have Councillor Stafford, Pritchard, Eaton, Yeomans, Rillette, Greaves, Dew, Bell and Themieliotis. Thank you. And those against? We have Councillor Platten, Wilkes and Fisher. Thank you. (9.3) and I understand there is an update. This is Queen's Jubilee planting and regulated tree removal. Update, yes.
Through the Mayor, responses to questions on this report from Councillor Pritchard and Councillor Wilkes were emailed to elected members, and a copy has been provided in your folders this evening. An email was also sent to elected members to clarify the description given to the 3 regulated trees proposed for removal in the arborist report. The arborist report being provided as attachment 3 to the council report this evening.
Okay, attachment 3.
Yes.
Yep, thank you very much. Who is willing to move this item? Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. Happy to move as written.
And do you wish to speak to the item?
Not at this point.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder or do we have any questions? A seconder, Councillor Stafford.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to debate? Do we have any questions? Debate? Councillor Fisher.
Mayor, I want to speak against the motion.
Yes, go for it.
For everything I said beforehand, the indiscriminate removal of trees from another state I'm all for getting rid of the dead trees, but healthy living trees that occupy an area within the district doesn't measure up for me. So I'm against the motion.
Thank you. Any further questions? Debate, councillor Wilkes.
I have some questions.
A question? Yep.
Yes, please. Okay. In the report that you put up, thank you for that. You said that there was a large number of different wildlife that frequented the area. Have these animals been considered in the planned removal of the trees?
You take that question? Yeah, thank you.
Through the mayor, they have, yes, we've had reports, well, the staff are aware, and also reports from community about koalas living in that area as well. We have considered that, and part of the proposal for addressing the large verge area there that has problematic trees is the staged implementation of our work. So the intent would be to remove the trees within this section, replace them with a more suitable planting that would thrive in these conditions at the reserve, and that would then provide habitat for the koalas and other wildlife.
You got some more questions?
Through the mayor, you ready? Yep. The trees that are currently there are not a preferred food for the koalas, so they use it more for habitat. That's the reason they're in that location. The trees that we are replacing them with are a preferred species of tree for koalas to eat, and therefore, and I think that's reflected in one of the attachments to the documents. The type of tree species that we intend to plant is more suitable. So yes.
Okay, perfect. Will any of the trees planted? Oh, sorry. Will any of the planned trees that you're planting affect the Knox Park upgrade?
Through the mayor, no. They've been planned in coordination with the Knox Park upgrade to not have any detrimental impact.
Okay, perfect. Are they being removed for the upgrade? I've only got two more.
No.
Okay. No, I think okay. So in the past, trees in that vicinity have dropped limbs, and I was just wondering if the trees that you're planning on planting for the Queen's Jubilee, if they are prone to dropping limbs, or if you can clarify.
Through the mayor, they are more suitable species that will grow better in that area, have stronger canopy, and therefore a lower risk of any limb drop.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Dew.
I wondered if the City of Onkaparinga had considered planting mature trees versus baby trees with the $20,000, and if it would be viable.
Through the mayor, typically native species perform much better if they're planted out in a smaller container size. It's just a nature of the invasive, a very strong root system. So if they're kept in a nursery and potted on, quite often you inherit some problems during that process. So the recommendation is to put them in a smaller size.
Sure, thank you. And one last question. I wondered, so it talks obviously about a staged approach, a phased approach with it. Can the trees that are planted, the baby trees, I don't know the more technical
immature trees.
Thank you, immature trees. Can they be planted under the canopy of the larger trees, or do they actually require the canopy to be cut?
Through the chair. So in terms of trying to establish trees within an existing canopy, that is problematic. So in part, the removal actually improves the conditions for the planting of the replacement trees. It's not also overshadowing, it's also competition for the roots in terms of the nutrients in the soil.
Thank you.
Councillor Platten.
Thank you. I've got a question. How long does council foresee these trees taking to get to the same size canopy as the ones we have currently?
I would envisage it'd be 5 to 10 years, depends on how much irrigation and etc. in terms of the specific conditions. So it'd be variable.
Okay. And what does the council propose to do with the trees that they're cutting down?
I would imagine that to be chipped and mulched in that location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford, do you have a question or wish debate?
Just a question.
Thank you.
I'd just like to get a bit better of an understanding of what a useful tree life is, according to the council, and what a tree would look like after it's past its useful life.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just so if I could just clarify in terms of the existing trees, useful tree life.
Yes, the existing trees. What
the
what would we expect
trees
from the end of a useful tree's life? Would it be dropping limbs? Would it be?
So yeah, potentially it could have overextensions between the ends of the branches, or it becomes a structural issue where the unions are to the trunks. So you have inclusions and then they split.
Another question?
Yeah.
Councillor Roulette.
Yes, my question is regarding whether there are permanent workers actually going around employed by the council or whether it's done by contractors.
Can we answer that?
And also related to costs.
So the differential costs between employees and contractors?
I'm just wondering if council has a team of people who do it on a permanent basis or whether it's a ad hoc contract.
Thank you.
Arrangement.
Yep, we can get an answer for that. Thank you.
Through the mayor, we have a mix of both. So we've got 4 tree trucks that we service ourselves and maintain with council permanent staff and trainees. Most are qualified arborists in the work that they do, but then we also have some specialist works that we might bring in for climbing or those kind of things, which is a bit more at risk that we'll use contractors for.
Councillor Roulette, did you have a supplementary question then?
Yes, if the tree removal goes ahead, what are the associated costs with ad hoc contractors or?
Do we have, I think it's in the report.
Through the mayor, the report details the cost for removal, planting of new trees and the irrigation at $20,000 funded by the grant from the federal government. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if that was it. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Is that satisfactory? Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Platten.
Yes, just got another question. Has any consideration been given to planting the Jubilee trees in many of the open spaces the city has to offer?
Through the mayor, yeah, we gave quite a bit of consideration about different sites and options. The Southern United Netball Association were also successful in attracting a grant for Jubilee tree plantings, and we've been working with them on supporting them with planting of an avenue of trees alongside their netball courts. So this is one of 2 sites that was selected. But yeah, a lot of thought was given, and I think it's the high profile nature of the location and also the opportunity to address a long-standing issue with failing trees and the degradation of that site generally.
Thank you. And I also helped plant some of the trees with the Southern Netball. Councillor Earl.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My question is, has the City of Ongaparinga previously undertaken a large removal of number of trees like this before and planting in stages, and what impact has that had, or what feedback have you had from community?
Through the mayor, we've had, I guess, urban creek recovery projects, probably a good example where we've undertaken removal of a lot of woody weed species and quite large trees within there, and that's through our creek lines, and then came through with, I guess, revegetation work. So quite successful in doing that, and just the timing of when those removals are done, and as repeated before, regarding competition, making sure that we're clearing areas so we don't have that competition for nutrients in the soil or for light and the lights, which can weaken the smaller plants.
Councillor Walker, question or debate?
I just have another question. So I just wanted to clarify, we are removing 11 trees to plant 50. Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Patton, did you have a question?
Yeah, just one more question. What is the percentage die-off of new trees planted by the city of Onkaparinga?
We've introduced a lot of new techniques regarding watering and water crystals and likes, and with our own nursery, we've been able to produce some really quality stock. So a loss rate would be probably 2 to 3%. It does obviously vary sometimes on seasonal conditions, and when we might get a very dry summer, but generally around that 2 to 3%.
Very impressive. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you.
Did you wish to debate or a question?
Just a question. I love questions. How will the new trees be cared for and will they be irrigated?
Yeah, they'll be placed on our maintenance. Well, I think that's on. Yep, we've been put on our maintenance programs, undertaken formative pruning, and yes, they will be irrigated.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Fisher.
Now that we're talking about this particular group of trees, how did it come to our attention that they needed to be fixed?
So, Mayor, I guess it's been a number of years where we've been managing the trees along this location. We've had extensive, I guess, tree loss and limb loss over recent years, not just through storm events, but I guess as the species has become older and getting, I guess, to it, as we refer to that end of useful life, and you start to see, I guess, flaws within the structure of the tree and some dieback and the likes. But then when we get the storm events and we get significant limb drop or total tree failure, I think there was 30 trees that actually were impacted and failed in the last storm events in November. It just starts to get to the point that we identify them as a high risk and need to undertake, I guess, a different approach to ongoing maintenance.
Yes, through the Mayor, I think with regard to this program, it's quite opportunistic for us leading up to the federal election that the Honourable Amanda Rishworth approached council and said, if you can put your application in reasonably within a time frame, she was hopeful that we would actually access funding. So as a council, obviously trees, climate change response, biodiversity, cooling of our neighbourhoods is a high priority. So we absolutely grabbed the opportunity with both hands to actually undertake and be part of this program. So it's a time where our staff are always well planned and know exactly where we would like to target or look at what a particular area we could actually use. And that goes the same for our urban creek recovery, which we were successful in getting $5 million from the federal government. Thank you. Any further questions? Either one, Councillor Groves, would you like to close?
Excellent questions, everybody. So I support this for a number of reasons. I don't know if many of you have had opportunities to actually drive up and down South Road. I know pre-expressway, South Road was the main corridor for a lot of us commuting to the city. And those trees, that avenue of trees, let's call it, has been there for 30, 40 years-ish. Over the last 10 or 15 years, if you traverse that way very often, you will see pretty much week in, week out, trees down, or council staff there cleaning up after trees have fallen. I mean, I'd hesitate to guess there's probably been well over 100 plus trees that have fallen. Not because of, anything in particular, except, they are a species that are not long-lived. And maybe it kind of expands it a bit because, we are seeing more of them drop more frequently. So it certainly has become an issue. I don't think that there would be too many people who live along that part of South Road who wouldn't be happy to see a structured approach to removal and replacement. That is a really, really, really tired stretch of road. The centre lane is also incredibly tired. And there are a lot of trees that are also failing in that median strip in the centre. So I think, this effort, combined with some funding from the federal government, is a really good opportunity to actually refresh that particular part, not just of my ward, but a pretty main piece of thoroughfare for the city. So look, I am happy to support it. I was going to say one thing. I remember talking to one of our field staff at one point in time. The trees were falling with such frequency that they would actually take staff down there and train them how to actually cut up trees, how to chip them, etc. So it is a long-term issue, which now we have an opportunity to actually create something that is going to beautify our city. So I'd urge you to support it, and thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll put the motion as printed, and you can all see. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion is carried. Yes, we'll call for a division. So please stand if you are for the motion. So Councillor Stafford, Pritchard, Eaton, Yeomans, Roulette, Greaves, Bell and THEMELIOTIS. And those against, would you please stand? Jew, Platten, Wilkes and Fisher. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the high quality of questions and debate, and I also want to thank the staff for taking all those questions with such knowledge. We are now up to item 9.4, the Waring Street Precinct Consultation Feedback Report. And we have an update for this report. Thank you.
Through the Mayor. So there have been a series of questions on this report from elected members in recent days, and responses have been provided, and copies of those are available in your folders this evening. I also want just to provide a brief introduction, I guess, that the Waring Street project obviously has a really long history, and it's been presented to and considered by Council on a number of occasions. Over recent years, Council has approved the concept design for redevelopment of the area. They've approved the transfer of state land to Council and approved the acceptance of state funding. In line with this direction, we've now executed an agreement with the state government for the transfer of the land and accepted state funding to deliver the Waring Street redevelopment. Tonight's report is quite specific. It's seeking Council direction on the community land classification and the lease arrangements. The report's being presented as it's a legislative requirement to do so. And the decision tonight is important because Council will soon own this state land. And with that land will come the transfer of the existing facilities and their tenants. And so we need to have arrangements in place once they become Council's responsibility. So the two decisions required tonight are as detailed in the report recommendations, what classification Council would like to give the land, and on a long-term lease for the Department for Education and the Southport Surf Life Saving Clubs.
Thank you very much. And I just want to draw your attention that in the recommendation where we've got the certificates from 1 to 10, that is the entire land for all of these. So we need to think of that as one piece for our deliberations. Do I have a mover? Councillor Fisher.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move the motion.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Not at this stage.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stafford.
I'd like to second.
Thank you very much. Would you wish to speak? Any questions? Councillor Jew, do you wish to speak? Question or debate?
Question.
Thank you.
It might be detailed, we'll just see already within the report, but I note that in the engagement report, and this is probably more around the design, so please stop me, Mayor, if I'm taking it in a direction we're not meant to. But I note in the engagement report that there were 2 residents who made comment and highlighted the significance of the space to Kaurna people, and also another who described concern about the sand dunes and the impact on the sand dunes. I just wanted clarity, I guess, around the impact of the sand dunes in that vicinity.
Can we answer that? Yep, thank you.
Through the Mayor, those issues have been top of mind of Council staff and working with key stakeholders for an extended period of time. Through the design journey and the design iterations, the building elements which are along the western edge of the proposed development have been modified and adjusted to reduce the impact on the sand dunes. So the aim has been as much as possible to bring them further to the east, and the alignment has adjusted through the course of that process as well. So it's been something we thought of genuinely and seriously, and also worked with statutory authorities to ensure there's a level of comfort on the impact that will be had there, and that's been reflected in the approvals to date.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkes, a question or debate?
Yeah, I have a question, and we also have a question. How many concept plans have been drawn up and consulted on with the community for Wearing Street?
Through the Mayor, there have been multiple concept plans. I think the first master planning goes back to 1999. There have been two versions from memory that have been subject of broad community engagement. There have been multiple presented to council through both reports and also through briefings, as well as ward member briefings. So it's the culmination of a lot of work, a lot of reviews and adjustments to reflect feedback from approval processes, from garner engagement processes, from community engagement processes. So it's been extensive and exhaustive exercise.
Thank you. Building on Councillor Dew's point and what you said about garner engagement, has there been a Section 23 undertaken?
Through the Mayor, there has been, and we have approval under authorisation under Section 23 of the Aboriginal Heritage Act to proceed with the project.
Excellent. And then just how many expected community members will benefit from the developments, in particular stage 1 in the buildings?
Through the Mayor, so the thousands of children go through the education programs run by the Education Department. They have multiple sessions a week down there. The Southport Surf Lifesaving Club have membership of over 500. So the facilities that will be of benefit to them that's their membership figures. And from memory, it's in the order of 75 or I could be corrected on that, but the Canoe Club also have a membership that will benefit from those facilities as well. Really importantly, we've always tried to strike a balance here with accessibility and improvement of the area for the broader community. So it's a very popular site for canoe use, for stand-up paddle boards from the broad community. So that has always been something we've thought of, as well as trying to find that balance between the existing user groups and their premises, but also ensuring that it's there to facilitate and encourage our general ratepayers and users.
Oh, excellent. That's actually in my ward, so I can verify a lot of those. It does seem like there is 10,000 kids down there sometimes.
Councillor Platten.
Hello, just a couple of questions. With the transfer of land from state to council, I'm under the impression that there's a $484,000 grant to re-establish the sand dunes or to clean the sand dunes up. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor. So in the latter stages of the negotiation with the state government on the land transfer, we were asked to take on some additional land, which was a sand dune area to the west of the current building shed premises. As a part of that negotiation, we were able to secure a $480,000 funding, or additional $480,000 funding from the state government, which is intended for the restoration and revegetation of that area. So you're correct.
Yep. And in terms of an ongoing budget to maintain the care of those sand dunes, what does that look like for council moving forward?
Through the Mayor. So the intent would be that we undertake the more significant work in that site to minimise the ongoing impacts to council. So we'd be looking at doing more of the weed removal, making sure we're stabilising the area and putting any more formal intervention work that's required, funded by the state government. We've estimated in the order of about $20,000 a year for the ongoing maintenance of that area. That will be, I guess, determined through the journey as we get more familiar with the understanding of the weed management and other measures that we required. But that is the figure, I guess, we're working towards at this stage.
Cool, thank you. And do we manage any other sand hills in that area?
Through the Mayor, we do also manage the Southport dune system. So it's something we're very familiar with and have a highly capable team able to manage.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Yeomans.
Yes, got a couple of questions, if I may. Has there been any thought to remove the 3 Norfolk pines? Let's assume they're Norfolk pines, that's 3 big trees down the side of the road there.
to enable the structure to be built closer to the road and away from the sand dunes? Was that ever part of the plan? What, sorry, was that ever considered?
Through the Mayor, it's something we have considered in a fair bit of detail. Those pines are part of the character and heritage of the space as well. So we're trying to find a balance here between some of the Ghana heritage elements, but also the European heritage. So the Sorbia House is a part of our European heritage of the area. From memory, it's a state heritage listed item. And so the removal of those was not seen as something desirable, trying to reflect those other heritage values of that site. So that was considered in quite a bit of detail, and particularly through the former CEO review of the site. And the decision made through that process was to retain them and in fact try and protect them without damaging their root systems, because they are also part of that character of that space.
Okay, thanks. And that point I was just going to make is that part of stage one, council is completely funding the development of a structure that will be used to conduct a private business known as Easy Kayak, and that's going to cost the council $93,000. There's no tender process undertaken for that lease. So my question is, have there been other instances where council have fully funded the development of a building or a private business without providing the opportunity for other businesses to apply for the lease of that premises?
Thank you. Who's taking it? Through the Mayor, I suppose, I think we've captured in the report, but council has taken over existing leases. So it's state government land, so they will come to us. And so that is where the lease is. So we're not starting from scratch, I suppose, is with regard to the leases for these businesses, for that business in particular. So I suppose, and I'm going to look to my right to staff members here, is that we will continue with their lease as what they already have under the state government arrangements. And then I suppose that would be up to council to consider down the track what would happen with that lease. Any further comment? Thank you.
Yes, through the Mayor. Yeah, look, I can add to that, but because there is an existing arrangement, council will take responsibility for carrying that on as the land gets transferred to us. And it's probably just worth remembering that that is a commercial arrangement at present, so there will be revenue generated from that lease for council. And at the moment, we'll obviously enter into an agreement that is consistent with the requirements of the Retail and Commercial Leases Act.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes, did you have a question?
Yes, please. Okay. What process will Southport Surf Lifesaving Club have to undertake if they would like to get a liquor licence for their particular area of lease for a function or an event or long term? And also, will this come through council for approval?
Through the Mayor, that's actually been provided in your answers that this afternoon that we sent out to you.
I know that was informal, though. I just wanted to get it on the record so that my constituents can hear it and me ask you guys in public, if that's okay.
Yep, the South Port Surf Lifesaving Club will be required to enter into a lease prior to applying for the liquor licence, as they need to have occupation of the land before they can actually attend to that. Their lease will then direct the tenant to seek the approval, which is a landowner consent and a letter of support from council prior to applying for that liquor licence as well. So they'll have to apply through the Consumer and Business Services for that, but they will ask us for a letter of support.
And does that letter of support come through the chamber, or will that just help?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Yeomans, did you have another question?
Can I say something?
Yes, or as for debate?
Yeah, put the clock on.
Okay, it's ticking now.
There's just a couple of aspects that I would like the chamber to consider prior to making any decision on this. Firstly, the total cost currently to council for stage one is nearly $700,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. If this motion is carried, one of the next steps is for council to renegotiate the new price with the building contractor that will consider delay and cost escalation. It would be nice to know the new cost of this development prior to approving the land acquisition. Secondly, I've had some cultural issues raised with me by members of the community. Although this may be the end of the long process from a council perspective, from my perspective, this is relatively new. 2 weeks ago, we received a presentation from staff regarding the development. Although I've lived down this way for over 20 years, I was unaware of Waring Street, so I visited this site a few days later and was able to get a grasp on what was planned. I also spoke with a couple of members of the community who raised their concerns about this development, particularly the impact of the large buildings on that small parcel of land near the existing sand dunes. As non-First Nations people, they also spoke to me about the existence of sacred sites and how it would be shame to destroy those sacred sites when, in their view, there was no need to do so. Since that time, I've engaged with other members of the community who have raised concerns on behalf of multiple First Nations families across the community, past and present, over the potential desecration of sacred sites and some ancient oyster beds. And I've also been presented with these reports from council. So therefore, I know a little bit more about this development than I did a couple of weeks ago, but for me, there is still a lot more to learn and think about. Section 23 of the Aboriginal Heritage Act, my understanding, basically approves the damage to Aboriginal sites, objects or remains, which is therefore an acknowledgement of the existence of places of significant cultural importance at this site. I would like to know what these Aboriginal sites, objects or remains are. Surely we should know what we are proposing to damage, disturb or interfere with prior to making a decision on this. And furthermore, just because we have approval through the legislative process to damage, disturb or interfere with Aboriginal sites, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it. I don't think I'm here just to rubber stamp a project that's been approved by the previous council. As I said, there's much more I need to learn and think about prior to making the most informed decision I can in the interest of the community. The principles I'm applying here reflect the pledge that we speak together at the start of this meeting. For me, these are not just words, but should set the foundation of our action. I'm not suggesting there is anything improper here, but it appears prudent to have a pause, reset and further investigate these cultural concerns and consider other options. Is there an opportunity to deliver something better that meets everyone's needs and truly respects the cultural significance of this land? What is presented here may well be the best option available, but without that knowledge or without knowing the updated cost to council, it's very difficult to support this motion at this time. So consequently, I'd like to make an amendment to this motion and add a recommendation that council undertake further community engagement, specifically with First Nations people who have cultural interest in this site, and that a report is presented to council that also indicates an updated cost of the development.
So we'll take it as debate and then pending the outcome of the motion, we can take an amendment.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I'm just checking with governance here. It'll need to be another motion. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Platten.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to
clarifying a question or debate?
This is a debate.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely no amendments from me. I understand that this project has been going on for 25 years. Personally, I've been living the Waring Street roller coaster since 2018. Like to just give a quick shout out to Anne, who's here tonight, who's a local resident and has been in my ear about it since then. I'm speaking tonight to give a voice for residents who are for and against in the area of Port Noarlunga and surrounds, and just to give a little bit of overview from my perspective. As a councillor from the Mid-Coast, I've been afforded the ability to allow residents in that area to speak through me. A lot of residents have some concerns about the Waring Street development, the risk to the sandhills, the cost of the project, the cultural significance of the area, and potentially the fact that the Surf Life Saving Club could go to the William Hunt Reserve. That is not what we're really here to talk about tonight. Tonight we're here to talk about some land transfers and some 21-year leases. I understand that. But from my experience dealing with customers and now dealing with constituents, I think it's really important to listen, to hear and to reflect those thoughts. So from that perspective, and to add balance, I've asked the chamber, I've asked the council how the sandhills, risk to the sandhills is going to be mitigated. And I am pleased to hear that there is a substantial amount of money that's going to be put towards helping the sandhills last for hopefully another generation. In terms of funding for the building that has already been approved by the previous council, I'm pleased to be able to say that the DEX portion of the building is contributing its full funding amount of $331,900. The community club is contributing, well, nothing personally, but they have federal funding of $288,000, and the council is kicking in because they're a City of Onkaparinga regular, $221,400. And the Surf Life Saving Club is really bringing the full proportion of their weight, with the emergency services levy contributing $39,744,000. Now the Surf Life Saving Club has up to, or maybe a little bit more than 500 members. This particular building is going to house their gym, and it is a smaller gym than the one they've got. The one they've got is fairly substantial, but it's going to include an education room. My hope is that that's used to promote safety in the water and not parties. I sat down with one of the directors of the Southport Surf Life Saving Club and had a coffee, and I looked deeply into his eyes, and he said to me that there is no intention ever to have parties at that site, and that site is to be used for education, storage and gym work. So I hope that he was honest to me about that. And the Surf Life Saving Club itself, with my last 42 seconds, is going to contribute $125,664. To sum up, I understand that there's angry residents, and I understand that there's a lot of people that want this done. What I've tried to do is to strike a balance and understand from both perspectives. So I hope that you will too.
Thank you, Councillor Drew. Do you wish to ask a question or debate?
I've got a question. I just wanted to seek clarity. I don't really understand about section 23 and just, I guess, what it means for us in terms of decision making. And like Councillor Yeoman said, I just want to understand a little bit more about that.
Through the Mayor, I'll tend to answer your question, Councillor Drew, and then the manager sitting next to me will add some more additional information. So the Section 23 process is the highest legislated government process at any organisation and state government and council to actually have approval through, I suppose, a measured approach to risk. And it's the only framework that is legislated that we have regarding cultural heritage. And it provides, once you have that authorisation, so it goes through obviously a process undertaken through the Aboriginal Affairs and Reconciliation unit, and it includes community engagement, and we provide various reports, quite an exhaustive and comprehensive process. And once an authorisation is provided, and then they the state government goes to kayak as well. And then once an authorisation is received, we then as a council have to work with kayak, and we get a cultural heritage management plan that we need to work with. So that management plan is prescriptive in as much as it tells us how we will build, or we either need heritage Ghana people that monitor our work, and how, and if in the event that there is some artefact that is found, there are very prescriptive ways of what actually happens regarding stop work, and then a process needs to be embedded. So it is the only really legislated very clear framework in the state to look at development in sites that may be close to, and heritage sites. So, I mean, that whole area is of cultural heritage. The Women's River, the river coming out to the coast, and the Jabuki storyline. And so we're well aware of the heritage of that site,
And Section 23 is a tool that and a mechanism by which to actually be as clear and have least risk to council's development approach. And there are other mechanisms by which we are trying to undertake through the First Nations People Advisory Group that before we even get anywhere near looking at designs of projects, that we are talking with our First Nations, our traditional owners in particular, around how to approach a sensitive and how do we work together to get the best outcome. So it's imperfect in whatever way that we approach it, but Section 23 has the highest legislative protection we can get.
Would you mind just explaining what kayak is? Because not everyone will.
Beg your pardon, through the Mayor. Kayak is Ghana Yurta Aboriginal Corporation, and that is the native title incorporated body for the Ghana people through their native title claim, that was settled, and it is recognised federally and also through state government. So there will be other bodies for every other nation will have their representative body if they've had a native title settled. So Kayak is Ghana, so that's the body that represents all Ghana.
Oh, sorry. You have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I do. Just one. I wondered, based on the plan that came back from the Section 23, did we make adjustments or considerations or further considerations from that plan?
Through the Mayor, so through the Section 23 process, we're having discussions with the State Department and about things like the nature of excavation that would take place, the types of measures we put in place to manage the site during delivery of the project. So I would say we put a range of different things in place, including, as the CEO has mentioned, the Cultural Heritage Management Plan that was developed and approved by the Kayak themselves. So a lot of measures have been taken, put in place, and most with the approval of Kayak to ensure we're guiding and putting in place best practice during the works.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Wilkes, question or debate?
I think I've gathered enough information. I'd like to debate now, please. Thank you.
Your time starts now.
Excellent. So as also a fellow ward member with Councillor Platten, I am a representative for the Mid Coast ward where this is. It is clearly a long history behind this project. It took me a while to get my head around it. And I must say that there's been many aspects and different things that I've spoken to a lot of people, as has Dan, and there's lots of different sides, especially the ones that are for and against. So the ones I've spoken to who are against, I mean, there's the money, the costing, I think the footprint is too big, there's sand dunes, encroachment, and it's not needed because Port Noarlunga is not a gateway, it's not going to be used with a high majority, the rental and liquor licensing worries, and it just generally for them doesn't pass the pub test. They love where they live, as do most of us. The people for it, they feel like they've towed the line. They've waited long enough. It's been since 1999. The Department of Education is working out of a shed that seems quite insufficient and small. I would call it appalling. And then the car park itself is quite dangerous. So Southport's president has been dealing with it for 5 years. The president before him was 11 years, and the president before that was 4 years. The Whitten Centre came along, or Sorbia House is known as, and that pushed it aside. And everyone's been waiting. Okay, so at the end of the day, we need to make a decision. Everyone who is there is making a considerable contribution, except for Easy Kayaks. There's a lot of money being given to the council to implement this project, including from the Department of Education, the federal grants that are happening, Southport themselves, the emergency state. So everyone's coming together. There's a high use in the area, and the area has been run down and earmarked to be updated, developed since 1999. Quite frankly, I feel like the council engagements have been excessive, to say the least. There was a concept plan approved in 2001, which went to a community engagement. There was community engagement held in that was 2001 to 2002. In 2013, a revised concept plan was developed, and in 2017, an alternative to the 2013 concept plan was released for community engagement as well. That happened in 2018. In 2020, a further community engagement was undertaken, and now we have this community engagement. So there's been quite a few. I can understand why there's people for and understand why there's people against it, but I hope we have addressed most of these questions, or all of these questions, in the debate and through questions on notice, which are also in the agenda. I think with the long-term foresight of the project is probably a really important factor here. It's not just about what's happening now, it's about what's going to happen in the future, who's going to be able to use it. All those 10,000 kids that are there with decks, and Southport Surf Lifesaving Club are raising kids who are going to support our community and protect our oceans. And I think it's really going to be great for our community. It's going to raise the spirit. They're not seeking to make profits out of the buildings that are going in. They're purely, not-for-profit making corporations. They're there to patrol and serve and protect. And I feel this project is for our younger generation, so they can learn water safety, learn to protect the community, and have a safe space to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, a question or debate?
Debate. Certainly, I support what's just been said. In fact, I actually visited the area before anybody was ever born in this room. We used to bring our sheets of iron along and skate down those sandhills. We didn't worry about any of those sorts of the environment or anything like that. But clearly, when you visit the location, you see those people wanting to use that area and visit, and they really need the parking facilities and the upgrades. One point that I would make, though, is that if we're going to, before we do any development, consider engaging with the archaeology students at Flinders University with their ground penetrating radar, and actually go and do a scan on some of these areas. My son used them on Glendalle National Park, so they might be interested in doing it as a study. So there's that opportunity, because it'll prove or disprove certain statements. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Eaton. Any further questions or debate? Councillor Fisher to close.
For the debate, Mayor.
Okay, in that case, I'll put the motion. All in favour? And those against? Councillor Yeomans. Thank you. The motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. The next is item 9.5. So 9.5 is the final report on the revocation of community land at 23 Glendale Avenue, Flagstaff Hill. And I don't believe there's any updates. And so we have the recommendations here in our folder. Who is willing to move that motion? Councillor Eaton?
Yes, certainly I'm supportive of it.
Do you wish to debate?
Yeah, well, look, I actually walk past that location most days. And in fact, what happened is the current owner actually inherited a problem when the first people built the house and they put the fence in the wrong location. It's runs along the side of a creek, so it's not going to affect anything. It's not an area that people use because the walking path is on the other side of the creek. So I think what we're doing is rectifying a problem that was created probably 40 years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS, did you want to second it?
Second.
Thank you. Didn't want to, do not need to speak. Any questions? Any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We'll just wait for Councillor Fisher to return. We might go to 9.7. We'll do that. Yeah, let's go. We'll go to 9.7. We'll return to 9.6 because I'll need to leave for that item. So we'll go to 9.7, which is the live streaming of council meetings. And I believe there is an update for this. Councillor Fisher, we'll come back to 9.6 in a moment. And we're doing 9.7 now.
Through the Mayor, we did receive a set of questions from Councillor THEMELIOTIS with a response provided in the yellow folders. There's no other update.
Yeah. Apologies, sorry, we're just checking something here. Did you do everything you wanted to say? Councillor Themeliotis.
Yeah, I'm going to move 1 and 2.
2A or 2A and B?
Yes,
2A and B.
Sorry.
Just checking. Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
Really briefly, I was going to refer to the answers to my questions, but I can't find them in the mess I've got right here. Here they are. Thank you very much. Elected members, our residents have constantly time and time again asked for live streaming, and previous councils have turned it down for a couple of reasons, and cost was the main thing. And right now we don't actually have the money for this. We're going to have to find the money for this. So it's going to form part of our budget, and they're going to seek to incorporate the funds from this item. And then again, the 28,300 is going to be an ongoing license and support service. I don't know if that fee is going to go up every year. Potentially it will. But I'm going to say that with the amount of people that reached out to me saying, please have live stream, please have live streaming, the cost will outweigh the fact that people want this so badly. The disappointing thing will be is if no one actually switches on to the live streaming, and if we only have the 2 or 3 people that participate in the live streaming, because there has been such a call for it. There's even been questioned that we're trying to hide things because we're not live streaming. A lot of councils do council meetings in different ways. Some people live stream just audio, some don't live stream at all. We do make our videos available. And just for a noting of our residents, no matter if we live stream or not, we're still going to run into technical issues. That doesn't mean we're trying to do something right or do something wrong. These things just happen, and we actually just do our best. So elected members, I understand the cost. I actually think that the cost is ridiculous, but this is what it costs. And this is what our ratepayers are asking us to spend money on. They see value in it. I can see we've only got 2 people in the gallery today. So there's plenty of empty seats to our ratepayers out there if you want to come in live. Elected members, I hope you support this. I know the cost is extreme for what it is, but ratepayers have been asking for it. And again, ratepayers, if this goes ahead tonight, I hope you actually switch on. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Wilkes.
I'll second it.
And do you wish to speak to the debate now? Or?
Oh, yeah, why not? I might as well do it now. I agree, obviously, that's why I'm seconding it. I think it's a really great idea and transparent, to be transparent and clear to our community, and what better way than to sit here and know that they can tune in. I think it's quite funny that people would, but let's hope that people do tune in. There is a substantial ongoing cost, which is $28,360. So maybe in bi-yearly we could review this, and if numbers are down and we're not getting the ratings, we could possibly think of going back to the same format. Sorry, I know we're not rating, but no, if we're not getting the numbers watching our debates, then maybe we could reconsider that $30,000 a year roughly and revisit it. But I think for now it's really important that we are live streaming, and I'm keeping up with the few councils that are and willing to spend the money on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Might depend on what's scheduled against the Tuesday nights. Councillor Fisher.
I want to talk about pies, but I don't. Can we get into the specifics of the ongoing costs, the licensing fee I get, just the hardware purchase? Can you give us a description of what the technology is that we're purchasing, and the ongoing licenses, as far as, is that just one license or multiple or whatever? Thank you.
Through the Mayor. So as far as the hardware purchase is concerned, I'm not overly familiar with all the technical details, but what I do know is that we have tried to leverage to the greatest extent possible the existing infrastructure. Yes, we'll be utilising the AV setup as much as we can within this chamber, and those costs are, I guess that small amount over and above that to facilitate the live streaming. When it comes to the ongoing licensing support, a large aspect of that is that support. So, we're introducing, I guess, another technical aspect to what we're up to. And we think it's important, and we've had issues previously where governance staff are running around trying to fix the solution, and they're not technical experts, they're governance experts. Earlier this year, we had some issues with volume levels and what have you. So this is really about having our third-party service provider available for those meetings to facilitate and address any technical issues that we might have during the live screening process.
So is it the Teams app?
Oh, sorry, where are we? There we go.
Is it Teams? Is it Skype? Is it?
I don't believe it's either of those two, but I will have to take that question on notice, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford, a question or debate?
Just some questions. So as I understand it, we can expect to receive the live streaming gear 6 weeks from now?
Through the Mayor, that is correct.
Okay. It's a bit wild when JB Hi-Fi is right next door. No, but a real question, if we were to pass this motion, how soon would we be expected to actually order and then be able to put all this new infrastructure in? How soon could we get to live streaming meetings?
Sure. Through the Mayor, we would action it ASAP. So all we need is the green light today, and it would occur this week. Once again, dependent on the availability of the hardware and what have you, but the commitment that we've received previously was 6 weeks. So I would say within 2 council meetings time, so not the one in 4 weeks, but the one after that, there'd be highly likely that we would have this implemented.
Okay, cool. You might have to take this on notice. Could we get a further breakdown of the costs?
I'm happy to provide through the Mayor the next level of detail, but we'll need to take that on notice.
Okay, cool. And last question, do we have an idea of what the other councils listed in the report paid for their live streaming equipment and licensing? And
through the Mayor, no, we do not.
Could we, can I ask that we get an idea?
We can make, through the Mayor, we can make further inquiries with a couple of the councils.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Eaton.
Yeah, just in respect to this, I think we also need to include, and it'll cost us another $11,500, but that's the time delay system. What you've got to understand in this chamber is that you don't have the parliamentary privilege that they have in state and federal parliament. And if you make a statement and that statement is perhaps an assault on somebody's character, or you actually breach the law with your statement, then if it's being live streamed, you've created a bigger problem. So you need the time delay. And we've had 2 circumstances, and I'll relate back to one where I'd actually warned the acting mayor there was a potential breach of the Ombudsman's Act might occur in a passionate debate before the meeting. When the motion came up, I raised the issue and I was overspoken. And what happened 5 minutes later? We actually had a breach of the Ombudsman's Act. And then I warned the chamber that you are all public officers and you have a duty to report the breach. So I would think that we need to amend this to include the time delay process.
Okay.
And what's more, it's less than a cup of coffee for each resident in the area of London.
So Councillor Eaton, are you indicating that you will move an amendment once we get through this? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Platten.
Thank you.
Question or debate?
Got some questions first. Council has a great track record of technology. Has the council got a number of quotes for this, or have they just gone through one provider?
Through the Mayor, it's my understanding that we approached the current provider because of the aspect around trying to utilise existing infrastructure. So leveraging the investment we've already made in the setup in this room. I believe it was a direct approach to that provider, but I will confirm that.
Thank you. And has the council considered putting ads on the streaming service to garner some income?
Through the mayor, not at this stage, no, we have not.
It's disappointing. And that's all I've got at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Platten. I appreciate your commercial interests. Councillor Greaves.
I've just got a couple of questions to start with.
Yes.
$28,000 is pretty extortionate. Is there something that this particular provider can provide over and above, say, doing something through Zoom?
Through the mayor. So I guess the $28,000, the ongoing support, it wouldn't matter what platform or technology we were using. It's more about having a staff member of theirs 4 hours for each meeting for 12 council meetings, 12 STCs and 4 audit and risk committee meetings. So it's probably a large component of that amount is just the time of having a person available on site.
So it is effectively just staffing.
It's a large component, yes.
Okay. So the other question I have is live streaming going to provide any further information to our community than what we currently provide them?
Through the mayor, I would suggest not as far as information provided. In the report itself, there's some risks and opportunities. One of the opportunities is to provide that real-time access as opposed to waiting the 48 hours to hear the debate and the discussion within the chamber. The other opportunity is, like this evening when we had a deputation, a person would not need to wait around to the end of the meeting. They could go home and watch the meeting and have the desired outcome. So that they are a couple of the opportunities, but I guess as far as having greater access to information or, opportunity to participate, obviously that is not, that does not change.
Just following on from one of the comments that Councillor Eaton made about inappropriate discussion or debate, how many times since we've begun publishing our council meetings on YouTube have we actually had to curate what we provide?
Through the chair, there have been 3 occasions where we've had to curate. It was on one occasion that we were able to go back and release the footage. So essentially there's been 2 redacted recordings.
All right. That's all the questions I have for the moment.
Did you want to debate?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yeomans.
Just a couple of questions, if I can. Will the meetings need to be adjourned if the live streaming does not work, which could potentially compromise the ability to conduct the business in a timely manner?
Through the mayor, as per part 2B of the recommendation around the code of practice proceeding of meetings, as part of that update, we would work through the various scenarios and what it would mean. I guess our initial position would be that we would need to carry on the meeting as we are. So there is the possibility where there would be a failure of the technology and we would still need to proceed with the meeting, would be our approach at this stage, is what our initial thinking is.
Okay, thank you. In the solution overview, as part of your report, I was just wondering, and this might be covered, I'm just getting a bit confused with the figures. What's the cost of the additional resource requirement to operate the time feature delay as stated in that? So is that an extra cost on top of what we've been talking about?
Yep, through the mayor. So the capital price, so the upfront piece of kit is about $11,500 to enable that facility, but that does not include the labour that would be involved. It's probably not as easy as it sounds. We would need a person capable of determining when the feature needs to be used. So they would need to be across everything that's potentially in confidence or otherwise. Is someone about to say something? I've got my finger, hovering over the button. It's not as simple as just pressing a button and not pressing a button. There is that whole contextual piece where judgment and experience would need to be used. We need to extend the length of this table because we would need another person at it. So it's not just simply $11,500 for the technology aspect.
So if we could just clarify, so we need someone, we need to be able to provide, we need a resource to maintain the efficiency and ensure that the system's working. That's tick. And we need someone to be presented here so that they can actually monitor the time delay and work the time delay feature.
That is correct.
So that's on top of the 11.5 grand it's going to cost to actually have that.
Yes.
And that's on top of the 83.5 grand it's going to cost to actually set it up in the first place.
The $30,000 to set it up in the first
and
place.
The capital is if I'm reading this wrong. Is it?
Yep, that's the capital. So it would be 41.5 for the capital.
Yeah.
And then the ongoing of the 28,360 plus another internal resource to undertake that function.
So we're starting to look at over $100,000 for this.
It's adding up pretty quickly, yes.
Yeah. And that's excluding the $30,000 per year to keep it going.
Including. Yep.
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 Thank you. Councillor Dew.
I wondered why the 11,500 roundabout wasn't included in the initial recommendation to council.
Because I guess if we reflect through the mayor, the original motion, which is contained within the report, we feel like what was put up in the recommendation covers that motion. We added this extra part, I guess, as an extension of the thinking and a risk mitigation. And yeah, I think from a personal perspective, when it comes to this report, it is around, what are we asking a member of staff to undertake and to have that experience and to have that judgment. If I could clone Desmond and Karen and put an extra person on the end of the bench to do that, that would be great, but those people don't grow on trees. So yes, it is, I could see this being quite problematic, that last part.
Sure. And in terms of, like Councillor Stafford asked before, in relation to other councils, is it common practice to have a delay in recordings from other councils? Are we sure?
Through the mayor, I'm not aware, so we would need to follow up.
Yeah. Could we implement potentially the current motion while we investigate the what do you call it? The 11. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Through the mayor, I believe that's yes, able to be pursued at a later date.
Thank you, Councillor Dew. Councillor Fisher.
A couple of questions, Mayor. So the first one relates to the actual time frame. So we're not talking about this happening in 6 weeks' time. We're talking about it happening sometime next financial year.
Through the mayor. So if we get the green light tonight, we would be able to implement the solution this financial year. So we would need to find the capital dollars to pay for those. And then when we talk about the next budget, which we are in the process of working through, as we are all aware, we would seek to include that $28,000 for the ongoing licensing support.
So through the mayor again, with respect, is that the way that resolution was painted up there?
I guess through the mayor, the resolution itself does not say, I guess, the date or the timing around, our approach. We've written how long it would take and what we could do. So if there was a decision to, pursue this in the new financial year, I assume that could be included, but what we have up on the board there does not explicitly say when it will be pursued.
Thank you. So there was a number of questions again through the mayor in relation to this delay. So it's causing some members, elected members, some angst, and I understand the principles of law and where we may go there. I also understand you say it's going to cost about $11,000 for 12 meetings for a person to sit to basically make sure the technology works, and queried the responsibility of that person should it have to extend to interpreting discussion on the floor, whether it falls within that ambit. My question is, isn't that something that a mayor or an elected member could bring to the attention of such a person in that circumstance?
Through the mayor, that would be the case. However, depending on how long the time delay was, it would need to be brought up pretty quickly.
Yeah, so, and my final question is about the delay itself. So do you have any specs on how long that delay would be? 3 seconds, 11 seconds, 10 seconds?
Through the mayor, we would need to take that on notice, but I would imagine there would be some flexibility around that. So that's something we could take on notice. And to an earlier question that you had, Councillor Fisher, the live streaming itself would occur through council's YouTube channel in real time. So as far as on what platform, it would be on YouTube, the live streaming, to your earlier question.
Oh, sorry, hang on.
In the current form, I'd like to speak, oppose the motion.
So you would like to debate now?
The debate is, yes.
Yes, your time starts now, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. The debate is simply in relation to the resolution itself. It doesn't reflect what was actually discussed just then. So if this is a decision that we're postponing until we have the funding for next year, I would support that. I also am aware of a number of questions that were asked of elected members in relation to the technology itself and whether we need time to actually find out what other councils are actually using and adopt that process.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford.
We were talking about the delay. I've got a question on the delay. So if we were to screw up, as Jeff has mentioned.
Can we just listen to Councillor Stafford, please?
If we were to screw up, as Jeff had mentioned, and say some illegal speech or break confidentiality, would there actually be a harsher legal impact, or would the impact just be that it's more readily available if there were no delay?
Good question.
Through the chair, I think there's a couple of aspects to this. There is the fact that someone may have said something in a public forum that was inappropriate or breached legislation. But then there's also the aspect that we're publishing it. So by publishing something that's defamatory or something that breaches legislation, then we're actually compounding the issue.
I see. Cheers.
Councillor Platten,
I'm going to try something new.
can you stand up?
If I can.
Thank you.
Can
Are you
I,
asking a question or debating?
moving a motion, a formal motion?
An amendment?
Sure.
Or a new motion?
A formal motion.
Okay, thank you. Go.
Yeah.
Can you read it out for us so that we've all got it in front of us, please?
So I, Councillor Dan Platten, would like to move a formal motion to postpone this agenda item until such a time as we have more information of the following about the time delay function. We have more information on multiple quotes potentially from multiple sources. And
other items as other questions?
No, and until we have garnered some more information from other councils as to how they utilise this technology.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
that's the motion you're moving?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder for it? Councillor Greaves is seconder. So just to correct the language, we need to adjourn that item.
Yeah.
Are you happy? Yep, thank you. And now there's no debate, so we go straight to this motion. So the motion is that we not postpone, adjourn, just so that everyone can see that in front of you, to adjourn this agenda item. Are they allowed to debate that now? No, we just go straight to the vote. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. That is unanimous, so the item is now adjourned. Thank you for that innovation, Councillor Platten, and the item is carried. And just double checking. We don't need to go back to anything else. No. Okay, so we missed item 9.6. I'm just going to go back to that. This is the call for motions for the Australian Local Government Association. And I don't believe there's any update for this item. And is there someone willing to move that?
Are you going back to this one?
Council, yeah, 9.6. Yep. No. Councillor Fisher, thank you for moving that. And Councillor Bell, are you seconding it? Are there any questions? Any debate? All those in favour? Thank you, everyone. I think that's a great contribution we're making to the national agenda. Appreciate that. Now it's 8:30. We do have a few more meaty topics, so I'm going to propose that we have a 10-minute break now, and do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Greaves, seconded Councillor Eaton. All those in favour? So I'll ring the bells in 10 more minutes. Thank you very much. So we're up to item 9.8, and I understand there's no updates. Is that correct? Thank you very much. So we have the draft rating policy, and just before we do this, just to remind us of, and I just want to thank the staff for all the work they've been doing in educating us on all the processes and all the information that we've had. They've been really excellent workshops. And if you could just pass that on to your team, we would really appreciate that. So we have a recommendation for the council to approve the draft rating policy for community engagement purposes. And do I have someone who can move that motion? Sorry, did you have any questions? A question? Yeah, we can start with questions. That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
I want to start with, so this talks about the cap. It'll be for residential. Can you just give me a bit of background about the cap for primary producers?
So through the Mayor, the cap on residential has been in place for around 15 years or so. It was put in place to mitigate the risks of large valuation increases in property values, because the cap limits the amount of increase that a ratepayer will experience from one year to the next for things that are outside of their control, such as valuation increases. In terms of the primary producers, the cap is only on residential at this point because when we apply a rate cap, the amount above the cap is then redistributed amongst the remaining ratepayers within that category. So within the residential category, there's around 74,000 ratepayers, which means that the reallocation of the amounts above the cap, which have historically been, or in the last couple of years, around $200,000. In prior years, it was less than that. It means it's an increase of maybe $1 or $2 per remaining ratepayers within that pool. For the primary producers, we have around 2,200 ratepayers in that pool. And in the calculations that we've done in recent years around the application of a rate cap, the amount above the cap that wouldn't be paid by a particular ratepayer distributed across the remaining primary production ratepayers is equal to around $132 per ratepayer that would be having to be paid by someone who is essentially not receiving a valuation increase on their property. So from an equity point of view, it has been decided by previous chambers that was not an equitable approach to rate capping.
Okay. And then I want to look at a paragraph here where we've got rate rebates, which is.
Can you just direct us to the page or the para?
Yeah, so we're on page 397, and I think it's paragraph 3 or 3.
And the rate rebates.
Rate rebates. Question. In my ward, I'm getting a lot of properties, I would say residential properties, converting into religious buildings. And I'm assuming to be captured in this rate rebate. What can I do as an elected member? And I know there's an act, so who do I need to have a go at to say that there needs to be some changes made? Because if I can bring people around on Sunday, break bread and drink some wine and call it a religion, then I would be doing that.
Through the Mayor, That would be an advocacy piece, councillor Themeliotis. So it would be, it is legislation which provides that that sort of the exemption or that charity status. So it would be either an advocacy piece or alerting or requesting either further definitive characterizations or definitions, and then also maybe also checking that is compliance there.
Can I ask if council staff, and you may not be aware, might have been ages ago, has the Act ever been looked into in terms of the rebates or anything that we're aware of? Or is it timely that maybe they do need to be looked into?
So through the Mayor, I'm not aware of any recent reviews of the mandatory rebates, particularly those around religious properties.
Okay. So the advice would be to propose a separate motion, maybe at a later date, on advocacy for that. Yeah.
So around places of worship?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fisher, are you moving the motion?
No, I've got some questions.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much for the work done at this point, which includes the EM session. So through the chair, Jade, I just want to ask questions. You may recall I've asked on a couple of occasions about specific levies for areas within the council area, linked to land, obviously, but examples like the improvements to Christie's Beach precinct, which in the past I understand part of the rate was incorporated in the levy, and asked staff of the council to consider those type of levies as part of the increase of that rate rise.
So through the Mayor, there's two ways that we can do that. So one is to have a specific levy on a rate notice, which does have to be linked to land usage and is applicable to all ratepayers. But the second is to increase our rates and include a portion of that amount, which we can say is for a specific use. So it might not be a levy that appears on the rate notice as, you know, a Christie's Beach precinct levy, for example. However, we could do that through a comms piece and making sure it's really clear that within our rate increase, there is a portion, whether it's a percentage or a set dollar amount, that is for that specific purpose.
So specifically, just to add some qualification to that, I was talking about sporting clubs, for instance. So with buildings attached to the land in areas where they are enjoying the new facilities that have been built, that could be incorporated there.
So through the Mayor, we wouldn't be able to levy that as a separate levy on the rates notice, but we could certainly incorporate that as part of the rate increase.
Thank you. Time for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Greaves. Did you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Eaton, do you wish to speak? Any questions? Councillor Wilkes.
No, I was just looking to second.
Oh, thank you. Are there any further questions? Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you very much to all the officers who have put so much work into that. We've now got item 9.9, and this is to receive and note the report and also to welcome back in a more formal way Councillor Greaves, one of the co-councillors for Knox Ward. So the recommendation here is that the council receives and notes the agenda report. Councillor Eaton.
I'm happy to move it.
Do you wish to speak to it? And Councillor Wilkes?
Yes, I'd like to second it, and I'd also like to welcome Heidi back and say she is a great inclusion to this chamber. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And I just want to thank also all the work that our own staff and the Local Government Association have been involved to have an outcome that was not going to disenfranchise those people who'd already voted in just a short while ago. So item 9.10, I'm just going to ask Councillor Fisher if he can step into the chair and declare a conflict of interest, a material conflict of interest, as I'm the subject of this application to attend the conference of the Asia Pacific Cities Summit and Mayors Forum, and so I will leave the chamber.
You're wrong. Yeah.
Okay, do I have someone please to move the motion?
Got councillor Themeliotis waiting.
Councillor Themeliotis, someone second, please.
I've got to debate. Deputy Mayor.
Hang on a second.
I'd actually like to move the motion with an addition. An addition. And the additional point would be that upon return, the Mayor provide a written report which will feature as part of the Mayor's report on the benefits and outcomes of her trip to the Asia Pacific Cities Summit and Mayor's Forum.
Thank you. Any, Councillor Bell, are you happy with that motion?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, so the amendment is being accepted by the person putting the motion. That's an order, yeah. Any discussion? Any further discussion? No discussion? I intend to put the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's the unanimous. Can someone please from staff go and collect the Mayor, and I'll hand back over.
Item 9.11, which is our council and committee reporting schedule. Do I have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Eaton, and seconder, Councillor Bell. Did anyone wish to speak to this item? All in favour? Carried, thank you very much. And now we move into the questions on notice. So we have a number of questions on notice here that have been published.
Do we think of this? No, we can go straight.
Can we just go straight now into our notices motion? Thank you. And thank you for everyone putting in all these great questions too. And so we're now up to item 11.1, Councillor Themeliotis. Oh, sorry, hang on. Apologies. Off you go.
Sorry. Moved as written and I'll go straight into debate. Councillors, on average, one woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner. 1 in 3 women has experienced physical violence since the age of 15. 1 in 5 women has experienced sexual violence since the age of 15. 1 in 3 women has experienced physical or sexual violence perpetrated by a man they know. 1 in 4 women have experienced physical or sexual violence by a current or former intimate partner since the age of 15. 1 in 4 women have experienced emotional abuse by a current or former partner since the age of 15. Women are nearly 3 times more likely than men to experience violence from an intimate partner. Almost 10 women a day are hospitalised from assaults perpetrated by a spouse or domestic partner. There is evidence that women with disabilities are more than likely to suffer violence from their partner. 1 in 5 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women aged 15 and over have experienced physical violence in their lifetime. Elected members, I've been contacted by women of the domestic violence, Southern Domestic Violence Action Group, who've asked me to raise this in the chamber. And why have they asked me to raise it? Because there was an election commitment made to have a domestic violence hub in the South. A fantastic commitment, a very worthy commitment. A commitment, unfortunately, that doesn't pause domestic violence and give us time to develop this hub. These things are happening right now. And these women are concerned. They're concerned with, on average, 1 woman being murdered by her current partner a week. They're concerned that this year so far, 9 women have been murdered by their partners. They're concerned that women are not getting the support they need and families are not getting the support that they need. I'm really angry. I'm angry that in our community in the South, we've lost so much. And what we have lost is a couple of vital services. We had Shine, a health service in the South that no longer exists. We had the Encore program, a breast cancer survival program for women in the South, no longer exists. We currently have Southern Volunteering. Their funding will run out. They have an opportunity now to apply for funding, but how long will that funding last? And what have we learnt around this chamber? That every time we lose vital services, we end up losing expertise, we end up losing knowledge, and our residents end up losing their only support network, the person that they build trust with. And as soon as that's broken, you can't reinvent it. There's a lot of women who've got a lot of skin in the game here with this particular commitment, and they need it now. There's no time to waste. There is no time to wait. And women are telling me that they just want an update on what's happening. And what does that update look like? Well, it looks like 2 things. It looks like the question on notice that I've put on, which is a response from a council perspective, what we know, where we're at, the conversations we're having, and that's fantastic. And then the next stage is a response, which will end up being a public response from the minister that could outline a timeline, a direction. It could give some scheduled, if there's consultation, if there's tender processes, something that gives some sort of comfort to people in the South who need this vital service. I think of Helen Oxenham, who knew that there was an issue. And what did she do? She didn't go through processes. She just opened up her door. She opened up her door, and it might have been a secret society for a little bit that women knew that there was a safe place to go, but it came known as one of the greatest places. So really what I'm doing is 2 things. I'm telling us elected members to start getting really passionate and really angry when we lose services, get really passionate and get really angry when we need services to come back straight away and fight with me. Don't be afraid to bring these things into the chamber.
And the time?
All right, I'll leave it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eaton.
Certainly, I'd like to second this. I actually had the opportunity when I knew this debate was coming up, or this motion was coming up, to speak to the local member for Brunel. And she was aware that we were going to have a council meeting tonight and said, well, why don't you come along and do a presentation or get somebody of staff done? And I thought she was going to do that, but clearly it didn't happen. And I actually reminded her staff Wednesday last week, last week, that had anything been done, and they looked at me quite blankly. So I think it's important we get this update.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wilkes, did you wish to ask a question, or?
I just want to speak to this one. I think it's a really important issue. I would definitely like to praise the Honourable Katrine Hilliard for making this election promise and bringing a hub to the South, putting $500,000 into a hub. That seems, a great step in the right direction. I praise Councillor THEMELIOTIS for bringing this topic up yet again and following up on her promise. This is a community issue that needs everyone's attention. It involves the whole community, and the more we speak about it, the more open we are, the more hopefully we can address this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Platten.
Yes, we all know how much I love a merry letter. And so I would like to give my full support to this. Being a husband and a father and a son, I have some fair connection with women in my life, and I think that is something that needs to be focused on and contributed to. So thank you.
Councillor Dew.
I was also contacted by Di Newton, who's the chair of Southern Domestic Violence Action Group, and absolutely support this motion. I just wanted to bring to the chamber's attention, if you're not aware, that the Southern Women's Matter campaign started many years ago, and even began probably 10 or so years ago, when there used to be a service down here called Southern Women's. And Southern Women's was exactly what this motion's about. It's a space and a hub for women to be able to access the support and services that they need. So our Southern community know exactly what this could potentially lead to. And I think anything council can do to support this, to hurry this along, is really important. And if anything, if we can secure a longer term commitment by government, successive governments, so that we can try and end this pervasive chronic health disease really in our communities, would be really good.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Did you have?
I have a question.
Yes.
Has the council had any kind of internal communication or contact with the Honourable Katrine Hilliard about this issue?
Through the Mayor, we have attended two things, and the Mayor has also attended. One was a meeting hosted by the Honourable Amanda Rishworth, where we had Di Newton and other community members there to discuss this. Honourable Katrine Hilliard couldn't make it to that meeting. We have subsequently followed up and had a meeting with the Department of Human Services Chief Executive Officer Sandy Pitcher and her staff, including Sangupta Desvaz, who is the lead CEO of the Office for Women, and the Office for Women is the state government agency who is leading this election commitment. So we have had contact and we continue to follow that up. And $500,000, while it sounds like a large amount of money, it really isn't very much, and that amount of money is over 3 years. So it is not a large amount of money, but it is a start, as Councillor Wilkes, you've mentioned. So I think we are maintaining our advocacy, and I think at the last meeting, trying to finalise, and I should also say our staff through Stuart and Paul Wright have also been meeting at an officer level with the Office for Women to try and look at what are the options. And I think the first option is that we are hoping to achieve is that there is actually a space, which is where what the Southern Women's was back in the day.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Wilkes?
Sorry, I just have one more. It's kind of a follow-up from what you just said. Do we know who's going to provide the service? Is this going to fall on council? Can you clarify? Or?
Through the Mayor, no, we don't know. And when you have $500,000 over 3 years, that is not really going to be able to secure a space and a service with proper staffing. So I think it is, we would hope, just a start of much more funding and a framework and resourcing.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Yes, just wondering whether we've advocated at all for further funding from the federal government on this topic.
Through the Mayor, the meeting that we had at Amanda Rishworth's electorate office, they have funding at a federal level. They don't fund staffing and as specific. They can do some services, but they can fund other things. But I think we need to have a place, and then we would be better positioned to access funds. So the federal minister is well aware and is involved in those discussions. So I think there is absolute funding there we could access.
And yet, just to add that the state government would need to make that application to the federal government. Yes. All those in favour of this motion? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And just to add my support to it as well, I was the chair of the Southern Domestic Violence Service for many years, and it's very close to my heart. So thank you for that support. Councillor Dew, notice of motion regarding the Aldinga Washpool.
Thank you. Late this afternoon, elected members, I actually did my usual and tweaked my nom. So I'll read it out. I provided it earlier, but I'll read it for your information. So my notice of motion, it's really not significantly different. In fact, it's actually the essence of it is asking for a report to be provided, which is what I missed out on, given a time frame. And I've also incorporated the importance of consulting with our First Nations People Advisory Group on Button Road. So the norm is so aligned with the ALDINGA Conservation Park Management Plan that is being developed by the South Australian Government. It would be valuable for the City of Onkaparinga to provide a report to Council by September 2023 to undertake the following. A consultation to determine residents' perception of the need for the western section of Button Road that runs through the ALDINGA Washpool, an engagement with the First Nations People Advisory Group on their position of Button Road, an analysis of the volume of traffic utilising the western end of Button Road, and if an alternative access to the beach could be identified for residents.
So you're moving that motion?
Yes,
Do you wish to speak to the motion now?
Yeah, does it need to be seconded? Yes, I do. Want to speak to it?
Yes.
First, actually, I'd like to acknowledge Tom here from Fleurieu Sun, who wrote a story last week in the Fleurieu Sun about the Washpool. And Councillor Yeomans and I, and I'm sure other councillors, are very glad to see a locally focused newspaper, given there's no longer the Messenger newspaper. So it's great to see you here, Tom. The ALDINGA Washpool is a rare ephemeral wetland with a diverse population of animal and plant species, including threatened species and migrating birds from as far away as Japan and China. It is the last remaining coastal freshwater estuarine lagoon system along the metropolitan coast. In 2001, the ALDINGA Washpool Lagoon was recognised as a nationally important wetland and recorded in the Commonwealth Government's Directory of Important Wetlands in Australia. And in 2022, the ALDINGA Scrub and ALDINGA Washpool were consolidated and proclaimed as the ALDINGA Conservation Park, giving it conservation status. There's a long history of advocacy from Kaurna people, environmental groups and residents related to the Washpool, and it's largely because of them that we have the opportunity we do today to further protect this unique and critical environment. I've had the privilege to go to the Washpool on different occasions with Carl Telfer and his mother, Alan Sumner, as well as Corey Turner and his mother, and heard about the connection and unwavering importance of this place to Kaurna. The Parks SA website describes the following. The Washpool site is of considerable spiritual and cultural significance to Kaurna people. It's part of the Chilbrookie Dreaming Trail and contains registered sites under the Aboriginal Heritage Act of 1988, including numerous archaeological sites and artefacts. At these times, and many times after, with environmental groups and other experts, I've learned that having a road such as Button Road running through the Washpool limits the ephemeral freshwater wetlands' ability to thrive. In 2023, the South Australian Government will create a park management plan that will include in the development a consultation with local community. The consideration of Button Road will not be included, potentially because it's a road managed by council. It would be ideal if this report being requested tonight aligned with the report timeframes of the Department for Environment and Water to ensure a holistic and thorough approach to the park's management going forward. The road running through the park is used by people to enter the beach, to walk their dogs, people with horses and others who go for a walk. I was glad to see in my question on notice that no properties rely on this road for access. Like all of you, it's important to me as well that the issues and opportunities I raise in this chamber align with the local community's priorities, and therefore I did a poll on social media on the 17th of Feb. 176 people from Celix participated, with 80% supporting the restoration of the Washpool and removal of Button Road. 2% said they would not support it, and 17% suggested they would need more information. This is clearly not a large sample of 2,616 residents that live at Celix Beach. However, it is an indication that there is an appetite for a conversation, and that is what I'm requesting the Chamber vote in favour for, that the City of Onkaparinga undertake consultation to determine people's perception of the need for Button Road, that Council analyse the volume of traffic utilising the western end of Button Road, that they consult with all key stakeholders, including the First Nations People Advisory Group, and if there could be alternative access points to the beach for local residents if deemed necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Yes, I'd like to second the motion.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, just to say that this is, I support the motion, and obviously this coastal area, lagoon area, Washpool is of cultural significance, as councillor Dew mentioned, and I think very delicate area, and should be significant work should be done to protect it.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Fisher.
Through the chair, is it a road? Is it a track? Is it a walking track? Is it, what is it? And the second part of my question is, if there is no road, how do you get to what's at the end of the road?
Great questions. Would you like to answer those, councillor Dew?
Sure, but I requested that a photo be displayed today up on the screen so people could actually get a sense of it. So Button Road continues. I would imagine someone from Sellex probably has a better idea than me, but it's a continuation that kind of hits Just Road or Main South Road further up. It continues for a few kilometres, and then this is the western end. So that whole footprint that we can see there is what is considered the Aldinga Washpool. Yeah, no, it's like a hard packed.
Yeah, it's not big.
Gravel-ish look. Yeah. Did you want to answer it, Matt?
I think it's.
Oh, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's definitely packed. It's not sealed. So
it's not sealed. It's just around the corner from me.
It's unsealed but very packed. So at the end of that road is a small opening, and it's all like a pebble, lots of little pebble rocks. Yeah. And that opening is popular for people on horses, people that want to walk their dogs. Even though I guess the question would be, are you allowed to walk dogs and have horses in the future, given it's a conservation park now? Yeah, but that's obviously state to consider.
Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. Thank you for that motion. Just in terms of the timing, you say, and through the chair, I probably have to refer this question to Councillor Dew, but the timing of the state government's consultation, it says it's in the early stages. What's the actual time frame for the consideration of that conservation park?
Councillor Dew, do you know the answer to that?
So I just want to clarify. So
can you just press your mic?
Are you asking the timeframe that state in terms of their undertaking of their consultation period?
Yes, and the park management plan. What's the end game?
Yeah.
Let's just see if we've got some other external advice on that. Through the mayor. So maybe I could start. So council has a position that it came through in the last 12 months around the things that we were advocating for, and negotiating parcels, various land parcels by which we would offer. So there's lots of different owners of land. Council has its own land, and we own and manage some land. Then there was SA Water Land and the Department of Infrastructure. There's a whole raft of different owners. And the idea was the council then had negotiated a position regarding looking at Ghana co-management or of the conservation park. We looked at the various land parcels of which we would be happy to advocate and to pass over to the conservation park. Importantly, there are stormwater challenges for council, right up to the residential Silver Sounds development that we have to have an easement over, because we are responsible for that. So there's a whole raft of things that we provided as a position. We are even today, we're trying to get more contact with the Department for Environment and Water around the position and progress. That has proved to be a challenging matter, but I'm looking to meet with one of their executives who's responsible, because the responsibility sits under the parks, And so I'll be pursuing that. But where we're up to with regarding, they will develop the park management plan. We have advocated, because it's such a unique coastal estuarine park, there's not many of those around with the migratory birds. It is quite unique that we wanted actually quite a unique or a higher level park management plan than what is existing on most conservation parks. We're still advocating that, but we're in the process of the various parcels of land and what's happening there. We're keen that the parcel of land which Button Road intersects, which is our parcel of land, would be included in the park plan. So I can't answer for the state government agency, but we are not getting very clear time frames around when things are happening. But I think the first step was around the parcels of land, and even then we are still negotiating.
So just a follow-up question, if I can, and the premise of the question is, we can go out and consult and determine the residents' perceptions, but we may not have anything that we can deliver on. So that's my first. It's a bit of a concern, just because I think, you know, we don't have any of our ducks in a row yet, and if we're going to go out and talk to residents, are we possibly setting ourselves up for failure in terms of not being able to, you know, respond? The other thing, I guess, is the timing. You know, I know that we've got a very full agenda around consultations, and I just wonder whether or not this should be considered once we've got some of those other things in place and once we know what the timing is. So it's just raising some concerns.
Thank you. Was there anything further any of the officers wanted to add?
Just through the mayor, just to confirm, the Button Road is unsealed to the west of Just Road, so it does run all the way up to Main South, and it's sealed between Just and Main South, but to the west of Just Road to basically the foreshore area is an unsealed road.
Thank you. Councillor, do you have a question?
I understand that people have been advocating for the shutdown of Button Road for over 30 years, and I know that this has been a really important topic for First Nations People Advisory Group as well. And in terms of timing, we manage Button Road, that's one of our roads, so therefore we can actually act on it in our timeframes, not reliant on state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Through the mayor, yes, we could, if council so decide.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any further debate? Councillor, do you wish to close debate? So I'll put the motion. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, or all those against? Thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Now we're moving into some confidential matters. So I'm going to be, there's no petitions. Is there a call for any urgent business? No. Okay. I'm just going to ask the public to leave as we're going to moving into confidential, but I do need a motion for us to exclude the public. Councillor Bell, Councillor Stafford, all those in favour? Thank you very much. All right.